On the yard.
I'm Jeanne Huntley. I have 33 years with Carteret County Schools in various areas, from teaching up to interim superintendent. And since my retirement, I've added 8 more years to that sentence.
Still
Get me to 41. Still
going.
Still going, filling interim positions.
I'm Jody McClenny. I am the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction. I'm a Carteret County girl, graduated from East Carteret. 20, this is year 25, but 3 years when I first started were in another state, and I saw the light and came back home. So I've been here for 22 years. Former first grade teacher, my favorite job ever. And I have been that, an assistant principal, and now at Central Services. Also, this one's not going to talk. This is a current student. We joked with him. This is my son, Cooper. He has to be with me today, and Mr. Paylor joked that he was going to be on the panel, and he about panicked. So we're going to leave him right there in the corner.
And I'm Richard Paylor. I'm the superintendent. I also grew up in Carteret County and product of Carteret County Schools. Attended North Carolina State as a teaching fellow, then returned to Carteret County to teach East Carteret for 6 years, high school math. Then moved to Pitt County and taught there for 3 years before becoming a principal fellow, and attended ECU, got my master's in school administration, was an assistant principal, assistant superintendent, and superintendent for the past about 20 months. So glad to be here. I'm proud to say I'm superintendent at Carteret County Schools, and I think we got very proud of what we're doing here. So
Absolutely.
So,
we're going to jump in.
yeah, we'll jump in. So I passed out books, and if you want to turn with me to like the second page where it has 8,000 plus, I'll just go over some statistics there to just kind of tell you who we are as Carteret County Public Schools. We hover right around 8,000 students, have been there for a while. We dipped a little after Hurricane Florence, but we're right back at right around 8,000. We have 7 preschool sites. We have 9 primary/elementary sites, 5 middle schools, 3 high schools, 1 preschool center, and 1 alternative school. We have over 1,700 kids that participate in the arts programs in the county. I think if you talk with residents in the county, you'll learn that our arts program is very robust with bands and visual arts. We have 27 different programs in our CTE, which is Career and Technical Education. We have over 25 varsity sports teams. We have 11 middle school teams. We would tell you that we are a Purple Star district, which means that every single school in our district is designated as a Purple Star school, which means they meet certain criteria to say that we are military friendly to the kids coming and going from Carteret County. Any given year, you'll see that we're on the U.S. News and World Report Best Schools list. Some other things not in that book, but just to share with you, in North Carolina there are 115 public school systems. We I don't know about this past year because I don't have data, but at one time we were one of only 17 school districts to say that we had no low performing schools, and that is true still. We have no low performing schools. I don't know about other districts, but we're proud to say that. We consistently rank in the top 10 in any given subject of test scores. This past year, we were ranked 5th out of the 115 districts when it comes to college and career readiness. We were 6th when grade level proficiency. Our high schools were 3rd out of all the schools in ACT scores, and we were 1st when on the ACT work key scores, which is a CTE related. So I'm very proud of our statistics. As I said, we're thinking we got it going on. Think that we're doing a good job as a school system, and very proud to say that. So, Miss Karen did give us some guiding questions, and Miss McClenny has those questions. I'm going to kind of let her drive the train, and we can chime in and we want this to be an open communication, open dialogue. So if you got questions, feel free to reach out.
Absolutely. So we are very proud of our school system and what we have accomplished, what we are accomplishing, and what we will accomplish. And we're also very proud and thankful for a community that supports us the way that they do, so that kids have opportunities beyond even the four walls of their school. And so we're going to talk through a couple of topics looking at the past, because I think in Carteret County we have a rich heritage. And one of our challenges is to take hold of that heritage and make sure we honor who we are, what we stand for, and still face the challenges that we face in society, because some of those challenges sometimes spill over into school, and schools are a reflection of the world. But more importantly, while we're super happy and proud of what we've done, we do believe there's work to be done and that we can continue to grow. And so one of the questions that we want to look at and kind of talk about is, being a student-centered system, what does that mean for the educational opportunities? And so when we think about the past in Carteret County Schools, what opportunities were available to students, say when I was in the early 90s at East Carteret High School?
Well, since I'm the oldest, and Karen was a classmate of mine, so we're the same era. There were athletics, and not many women's athletic programs, just men.
Just cheerleaders.
Cheerleaders, yes. So that's a huge difference. CTE, which I just am in all of the programs we now have, was very limited back in the 70s. And all of the student services have just grown, because we had a guidance counselor that helped us with college applications. Now guidance counselors are called to be mental health folks, to do a lot more than just work on schedules. And we look at that job as dealing with the whole child, and academics only being one piece of that. That social emotional is so important. Subject-wise, they were very limited. We didn't have AP courses.
I didn't know.
We had, and I went to Chapel Hill, and I was blown away by some of the people I met there, the opportunities they had that we didn't, but we were still measuring up. And that was the important thing. We have graduated doctors, lawyers, executives, even with some of the limited options that we have had in the past. So it still has a great, rich heritage.
Absolutely. And when I think that you touched on the CTE side of things, there are so many opportunities for our students to explore and find what they're interested in. And there's no shame in getting into high school and not knowing. But we also know that we have a great opportunity for middle school. Middle schoolers are a different beast. And if we can get them thinking beyond high school about what they want to be, then we can have our counselors guide them into what they're interested in and hopefully re-engage them and find their passion. And so I'm very proud of that and the different pathways. One of the main parts of the opportunities we now have that we didn't have is our Career and College Promise. And Dr. Mancini is here. The opportunity that our high school students have to be dually enrolled at the community college as well as high school, and that one course that they take that is free of charge for them as a high school student allows them to get a high school credit and a college credit, two birds, one stone, and saves money for those students before they go off to college and maybe don't know what they want to do. And so we have, Mr. Paylor, one of his big pushes when he came in was to realize and understand there's been a shift. There was a time where it was, if you didn't go to a four-year university, you were not going to succeed. And I'm thankful that that shift has happened, that it doesn't have to be a four-year university for you to be successful. For us, we have three goals for kids. Pick one. You're going to enroll in something after high school. You're going to enlist, or you're going to go to employment. We're fine either one. Our job is to prepare you to do that so that you can be a good employee, that you can be a good service person, that we can find the college that's going to meet your needs. And so when I think about, you talked about counselors, we now have career development coordinators in high schools who meet with students constantly to find what their interests are and to hopefully Get them in an internship at a business before they graduate so they can begin to find who they are. And we believe strongly that we have a responsibility to help students find who they are.
I'll speak to major clarity also.
All right. So this was 2 years? 2 years.
Start year 3.
Started year 3 this year. When you think about career planning for students who, Carteret County is known as and I, quotes, if I don't know, sure if you put quotes in this, but people think Carteret County is rich, right? But we have a lot of students that come from a lot of different socioeconomic backgrounds, and we want to make sure that everyone has equal access to career planning and thinking about their future. We have a web-based program called Major Clarity. And in the 6th grade, our counselors start introducing it to students where they can get on and they do a personality profile. They start looking at interest inventories, and it begins to tell them what careers are available for them. Some are right here in Carteret County, some are not in Carteret County. But our students in 6th grade start working through that so they can begin developing a career plan. I'm super proud that we started that 2 years ago, because now the state has passed a law that says every kid entering into high school not this year, but the next year, has to have a career plan. Well, we're already on track. We know that that's what we want our kids to have in the future. And so each year when that counselor goes to sit down and talk about classes, they can pull that up, and it changes as their interests change. And it's really a starting point and a talking point for them to be thinking beyond their future. So we are super excited that we have that tool for students. The other part of that is it allows us to put in scholarships so that when kids log in, they can see what scholarships are available. Our CDCs can put internships in, so when students are nearing summer and they're thinking, I want to get a job, but I'd really love to get a job in something that I'm thinking about. It's just a one-place hub for all of that, and so we've had great success with that.
I'll speak to that. So last night we were at the museum on Harkers Island, and there was a student there that's in grad school, and she was talking about basically as a high schooler or as a middle schooler, you don't know what you don't know, and the Major Clarity, it just gives you. This particular student was talking about she was a mathematician and didn't really know what she could do as a mathematician in Carteret County other than be a math teacher. But then through some doors opening and connections, she is now working, I think she said, at Duke Marine Lab as a statistician. But it's just opportunities like that are right here in Carteret County that kids don't realize are here. But through programs like Major Clarity and career explorations, then those eyes are open for opportunities that are right here in the county.
And to piggyback on that, we are still strong and committed to the reading, writing, math, arithmetic. Like that is still the focus of where we are. But I think we are bridging a connection between the career and technical education side and the core content areas. A shop class where you're building something, they're bringing in the math skills, these real world skills for kids. And that's been nice for kids to see what happens in my history class really has a part of my English class or my math class and my science class. And so really helping kids understand the big picture of education and what its purpose is. So we've still got that strong focus. We've added on an emphasis on beyond high school for kids as they begin to plan. But then the question is, what's down the road for education? And we were talking, we don't know. Here's why we say that. Artificial intelligence has changed the game for kids. I think it's an opportunity for us as educators to look at the educational experiences that some students may have with a headset on. They can visit another country. The world is truly flat when we look at technology now and what they have the opportunity to do. And so our challenge is, how do we leverage that to enhance opportunities for students to engage?
So there's also a monitoring part of that.
Absolutely,
as well.
Absolutely.
And staying ahead of that curve is a challenge.
Right. And let's go down the technology loophole for a second since we're there. One of the areas in the past of technology, I am old enough to remember the technology in my school. They rolled the TV into the room, right? The great big car.
Space shuttle.
Right. Or the ACC tournament. I'll tell you, we watched the ACC tournament. And then the teacher would come with purple all over her hands because she had the risograph where she made and as students, when I first started teaching, that's what we had. And so certainly technology was not the focus then. And then when I started teaching 1,000 years ago, we didn't have it. And when I got to Carteret County, I was in another state. I had a computer and they talked about email, and I knew what email was. But then technology kind of exploded when COVID came, and we were forced to teach behind a screen. And we kind of built that ship as we were going. There are some benefits to technology in education, and there's certainly some things that we need to be careful of. But Jeanne, talk about what you see with technology.
So sometimes I'm just blown away. I was back taking an interim position in the high school this past year, and several teachers came in and they were sharing about how you can now assign a composition, and through artificial intelligence, students can pose that composition topic and come up with a composition. So staying ahead of that, and I think Carteret County is staying ahead of that. They're putting some things in place. But we didn't have any technology. Yeah, I was even back further than that when we had the reels of movies that would break as you threaded them. So the access that students have to go and get information, I am blown away with watching even first graders be able to access technology and find answers. They've grown up in this world. They are natives to that world, and it is no problem. So by the time these little 5- and 6-year-olds get up to high school, they're very astute. Mm-hmm. And so it's got its advantages, but there are some challenges. And as you talk about, we don't know the future. Technology is exploding so fast that it is going to be so important to really be sure that it's used for all the good reasons.
If I could piggyback on that, the challenge as a teacher and a system now is we have to teach the academic side of things, and Jeanne mentioned the social emotional needs of kids, but we've also got to teach digital citizenship, because they can get information in a second. They're walking around with an encyclopedia in their hand, and so helping them to understand that everything you read is not true, and fact checking and sources and all of that's going to be so important as they move forward applying to the world beyond Carteret County.
And I'll just say one thing, just to piggyback. So I'm not going to pretend to be a curriculum expert. That's why I have Jody. But it's important to teach, just like she was talking about the facts, you're walking around with facts. So I remember back in high school and all of the grown-ups, and not to say y'all aren't grown-ups, but the people that have graduated years ago, you can remember your social studies test was you had to remember what dates certain things happened, and certain facts that now it's really not all that important because you can find out in a matter of seconds on your phone. So it's important for us now to teach kids how to think, how to process information, because we're preparing them for jobs right now that don't even exist. I mean, we can't even tell about some jobs out there because they're not even here yet. So it's important that we teach kids how to think and how to process information and how to work as a group and be collaborative, much more so than when we were in school.
Absolutely.
And you had a question.
Yeah, I was just curious. So technology is a wonderful tool in education. I was curious how you navigate equal access to it for your students.
So we're a one-to-one district. So every student has a Chromebook, or K1 they have iPads. We have hotspots for families that don't have internet access, so that they can have those as well. So they have the tool with that. Before we move on, because I do think that's a good segue into teaching and learning, I do think a challenge of that is the technology is great, but if it's just a lit up worksheet, it's not making kids grow. And so we really look at it the lens of technology as a tool to expand, to think, to produce, and really that lens of it. But you talked about curriculum and teaching and learning and what that looked like in the past to what Richie was leading to of we've got to have kids that are collaborating and know how to work together. And unfortunately, COVID made kids work by themselves and changed that social aspect of it. So let's talk about, from a teaching standpoint, what did teaching, learning, and curriculum look like in the past?
Well, I came up in the Dick and Jane era. And
I loved it.
and you were so excited in first grade when you got your first Dick and Jane reader.
Yep.
But you were also very aware of who didn't have one of those yet. So I know it's probably overused, but you had your bluebirds, your redbirds, and the not yet birds. But now everything is so integrated, and we teach to students differences that students are just not aware of all of the differences that students have. And if they are aware, are very open to helping in any way, or I would say accepting differences. We really stress that all students are different. And I had the good fortune to be at the preschool center in Newport for 5 years, where there were a lot of autistic kids that back in my time were not allowed to come to school.
Mm-hmm.
And if they came to school, they were put in a classroom where they did not mix with anybody else. So we've come a long way in that. But the differences become even more evident when you're there, because you know that just because you've seen one autistic child does not mean you've seen any more than one, because everybody's different. So for teacher education programs, it brings about, they have to have a lot of skill set to be able to differentiate, see the needs, meet the needs and of those students, and move them along with those career development. And there is nothing that makes me any happier than to hear those success stories. There's a student right now that when I was a high school counselor was a non-reader, and now can read the Bible and preach the prettiest sermon that has ever been. And he learned it through the Bible. And so there, for that, I'm very grateful that we have opened so many doors for students who learn differently.
Mm-hmm. And looking at the present time of what we're teaching and the curriculum and all of that, I do want to kind of put this in there. There's a narrative out that we're teaching some off-the-wall things. And that goes back to check resources, that some people believe we're teaching things that we're just not teaching. In fact, there was a law passed last year about things that we were teaching and not teaching. A law put into place that we've not had one case of that in our county all year, not one. So I think it's important too to know that we're not indoctrinating anybody's children. We're teaching the curriculum. We're loving kids. We're going to always love kids. We're always going to want them to know it's a safe place. But I do think that's where we are presently, of the question of what are they doing in their schools. But Jeanne talked about the challenges of a classroom full of different learners. And what we know in education is research in how children learn is fairly new, but to the 70s. Y'all are too young to know, but it's not that old. And so we have learned a lot about how students learn. And in education, just like everything else, it shifts. Like there was Dick and Jane, and then it was don't do Dick and Jane. Well, guess what? We're back to doing Dick and Jane. And we've just trained the whole state of North Carolina. Every elementary teacher went through 2 years, about 144 hours of training on Dick and Jane, because we know that's how kids learn. And those of us would, I think, Jeanne, when I started teaching, you were a principal, and you said you got to be in the middle somewhere because it goes either way. I am super proud of our teachers who view themselves as professionals. Our administrators view them as professionals. And I am super thankful that we've got a community that loves teachers and knows what they put in each and every day. And so we know more about how they learn. We know it's not sit and get anymore. I remember my freshman year of high school, I probably didn't say a word out loud all year long. Part of that was who I was, but now quiet classrooms make us nervous because we know kids learn by talking, by doing, by being challenged. And so our challenge is, how do we provide opportunities for them to use all of those skills as they learn as well?
And I'll speak to, I passed out a booklet to everyone beginning of this. And so this past year, we created a new strategic plan, and that's what you have here. And I just wanted to point out to Jeanne's point about the kids. And if you'll notice on our new vision and new mission statement, there's a word in there that's all caps. And that word is all. And that's something that we've preached for years and years, and we continue. That all means all, and we say every single child is important in Carteret County. Don't matter what skill set you bring to the table, you're a child. We're going to do our best to prepare you for life after high school, after you graduate. So all means all. I just want to point that out.
Mm-hmm. And then in the future of what we'll be teaching, I'm confident in saying in Carteret County, we know who we are. We know our community. We know what our kids need. We've been very, very successful at that. Education, there are a lot of people that have a lot of opinions about it, and we wish that people would talk to us about it when they made decisions. And so we will, a challenge we have in the future is to continue to advocate for public education, because public education is not broken. In fact, it is strong, and it is serving our community and our students very, very well. And we will continue to fight for that, so that all children have access to a quality education. So we're talking about students. Let's shift gears to that to students, because it has changed when what we see in our classrooms. And so students of the past, I always say this: learning is still learning, and students are still students, but we may have to do things different. What would you say a profile of students in the past would have been?
Well, first of all, you just went to school because that's what you were to do, and you had parents that you did the sit and get part because that's what was offered and that's what you did. Now we are so much more innovative and interactive that students have a lot more say in what they're learning, or better, how they're learning it. And so I think we need the student, well, I don't want to use the words need. Students need to be, yes, they do need to be self-motivated, more so than we were motivated by grades when I came through. Students are more motivated by material and what they're learning these days, I think, than we were, because there's so much out there to learn. And so it's not you won't go into schoolhouses and see the straight rows and the whole class teaching. You will see groups and interaction and learning going on in a very different way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you hit on it. It's the access that our students have today. Their entertainment is right there, and then I'm going to stand at the board and I'm going to write. That's not going to happen. We are master entertainers in a way of engaging students. And I think the students have required us as teachers to view our job not necessarily to give you information, but to facilitate your opportunity in reaching that information. And I love that you said student voice, because part of engaging students is having them have a voice in it. So if Jody shows you this science concept one way, but Richie does it a different way, it doesn't matter as long as we get to the same goal of mastering the content. And so our teachers are wear a lot of hats in monitoring and knowing what every single student knows so that they can target those skills and monitor it. So it's not an end of grade test doesn't define them. We know all along how they're growing and how we get them to where they need to be. What about the future for students? I don't know. I don't know why it's going to be out there for them to do, but what I do know this is that a teacher will always be needed. A student will always need a teacher, whether technology is there or it's not. They're going to need that adult in front of them, helping them guide and make decisions as well. We talked about, you talked about autism and special needs students, and one of the things that has been posed is, are we having more instances of more children with special needs, or why is there just this sudden increase of extreme needs there? And so I'm interested, Jeanne, you've seen a lot of students. What do you think about that?
And I don't think I have an answer to that.
I don't either. That's why I asked you.
I do not think I have an answer. I don't think it's a vaccine or anything of that. I think it's a mixture of some culture changes within our society. I think it's probably some dietary changes in our communities, and I wished I did have an answer of if we could just do this or do away with that, we wouldn't have it.
Right.
But I also see such a richness in having all of those children with us.
Right.
Because they teach us so much. You know, it's the teachers learn as much from the students now as the students learn from the teachers.
I even wonder, are there more kids now, or is it just the way the kids are diagnosed now? I mean, more aware and more, and the criteria has changed. And
which is good for us, because when we see things, then we can intervene early. You think pre-K. Like, people do not understand the power of pre-K in the development of students. And so I agree there. I don't know the answer, but what I do know is when we know profiles of children and how they learn and characteristics, then we can better teach them. And so I don't see it as a bad thing. I think it's we know more about disabilities and what works in terms of research. And that's a challenge we have, is staying current on best practice to serve students.
There's nothing worse than an educator around family in this day and time, because what you find is Thanksgiving, no, he was that, but they didn't know about that back then, so he never got diagnosed. And she, she's got that. They didn't medicate her. You know, I think it was back then, but we didn't know enough about it.
Right.
And if we knew about it, we certainly didn't know what to do about it.
And I think the federal law and protection of individuals with disabilities, like when we say we serve all, they come to our doors and we take them in and we love them and we treat them where they are. It's no longer the day where you said you have to be in this room with the door closed. They're a part of our school community, and as you said, we learn as much from them as they learn from us. And ultimately, our kids today are the ones that are going to be our citizens in the future, and that's the world I want, where people feel they have a place. All right, so let's shift a little bit, because as great as our school system is, we know we can't do it alone. And so let's talk a little bit about community and partnerships and the importance of community. I'm going to start on this one on the past, because being in another state, I saw a very different view of the schools and what brought me back here. Growing up on Harkers Island, The schoolhouse was like a church. It was a sacred place that everyone looked at those teachers as really leaders in the community. And that's not the case everywhere. And I know it's not just Harkers Island. I see it when I was in Newport. The school was the hub of the community. It was where we met, where we laughed, where you were always together and supporting one another. What do you see the community and partnerships in today's school's role it has?
Well, I think we saw it very vividly during COVID as we reached out to continue to try to touch base with the families, especially through food programs and being sure. I go back to a story that a former nutrition director in Carteret County shared with me about being in inner city Charleston as a food nutrition person. And she was a manager of a cafeteria, and she said that they had no programs to feed children when they were out of school. And her nutrition director said, I want you to go with me to this school the first day back after Christmas, and I want you to see what happens to children that have not been properly fed. And she said it was a free-for-all. A lot of anger, fighting, just off-the-wall behaviors because the children were hungry. So now I look at, how important the food and nutrition program is to our kids, how important the arts program is for our kids. The backpack blessings that comes from the community. When I went back to East Carteret, we had students who were couch surfing, had no place to go in the afternoon, weren't quite sure where they were going to sleep, and we fixed a backpack, not just for the weekend, but every day. Mm-hmm. And we made sure that we were taking care of those needs. The support of the community in the internships that they're doing, all of that plays into addressing the needs of the whole child. And the foundation has been such a blessing financially to many families and taking care of just urgent needs. Started really in earnest during Florence and has continued on that mission, that if we know that there is a student without certain things, doesn't have a bed to sleep in, we're a phone call away from a community person that will take care of that.
You can't learn if your basic needs are not met. And we're super thankful for the foundation and stepping in where state, local, and federal money won't allow us to use for that. And I know at a building level, we've all had multiple times where we've picked that phone up and I'd have a call back within an hour and say, he's got an appointment at so-and-so tomorrow. Right. And that to see a family break down in tears because someone cares enough to help, you don't get over that. You don't forget that as well.
And I'll just say, I'm very biased toward Carteret County. I have worked in other systems, and we're very blessed in Carteret County as just a feel of family here, and people wanting to take care of each other. We have great relationships with many faith-based organizations. Jeanne spoke to the backpack lessons. In a couple of weeks, we'll have the Stuff the Bus campaign, which provides basic needs, school needs for kids. And I'll just reemphasize the foundation that was started. What are we on, the 25 years? But really, it really amped up, I would say, at Florence, after Hurricane Florence, and just the basic needs that are met by for kids and families and even staff members. Just things like a kid that might need a pair of eyeglasses to be able to see, and the family can't afford it, or they might have an abscessed tooth and can't afford it, and just the basic needs that the foundation's able to provide is incredible. and they do such a great job in helping our students and staff.
And one of the shifts I've seen in the last several years, probably post-COVID, is our outreach into the community and what we could do. And a couple of years ago, Dr. Williams and Sheriff Buck were talking about the drug epidemic we really have in our county, and our I said our schools are a reflection of the community. We have a lot of students who have parents who are living in addiction, and so we feel we have a responsibility to partner with the health department and the sheriff's office in drug education and what is available. And so we partnered last summer and wrote an entire curriculum to be taught to students by Carteret County teachers, because we got the best. And why not use these expert teachers to write that? But also to bring in Carteret County residents to talk to students. Because guess what? High schoolers really don't like to hear from us. They like to hear from community members and the face of what we're dealing with. That has gone over extremely well with students, and appreciating the real talk of what the challenges are with that. And so we're super, super proud of that, and glad to have that partnership continue.
Jody, before we leave community, I have to include parents as part of the community. And the parents as partners in education is so important because you talk about parents living in addiction. A lot of those folks didn't have a great school experience and are a little bit intimidated about coming into schools and being partners. But getting creative and including them in their child's education, and this is a no judgment zone, that we're going to work together for the benefit of your child. You help me come up with things that you would like to happen with your child, and let's get it done together.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think that's the future. One of the key factors in the success in the future is that we look at parent education as all are welcome and we educate them just as much. A personal story on that: as a first grade teacher, I remember I had this family come in and I'm talking teacher language, right? And I'm on a roll. And this dad finally stopped and says, "What are you talking about?" And I thought, oh my gosh, I just talked for 45 minutes and I didn't think about where they were coming from. And it was a great lesson for me. And so, one of the things that we are being smart with our funding, especially our federal funding, which has to do with parent involvement, is how do we get parents to come in and break any notion of what school may have been for them and how they can help our students. We tell our elementary parents all the time, we don't want you to worry about, you don't need 3 or 4 hours of homework. In fact, we don't want you to. Here's what we want you to do to come to school. Read to your kid, play with your kid, and talk with your kid. Because I guarantee if those things happen, when you get to us, we're going to partner together and everything else is going to fall into place. And so parent education is going to be the ticket to not only our success as a system, but I think our success in our community going forward. Let's talk chat. We got 12 minutes. Yes. So we're going to end with this. I want you to talk about what you think the challenges are in the system and then what your hope is for our system.
Are you going to start with me on that?
Challenges. The challenges are, if you've seen anything lately, we always have financial challenges, and that's just not at a local level. That's very much at a state level and a federal level in getting the funds that we need to do what we need to do. Our local government, they're very good to us. They fund us very well. We could always use more. That's just the bottom line. We've had to cut positions recently, and I mean, I understand that, but that's always going to be a challenge for us because we always see the need, and we're always going to need more. And that's the world we're living in. And I think the technology, as great as it is, it's going to be a challenge. AI is here; it's not going away. The challenge for us is to stay ahead of it, to to try to prepare kids for something like I said earlier, that for jobs we don't even know is out there. But that's going to be a challenge. For me, the hope is that no matter how they come to us, no matter, as I said earlier, no matter your skill set, no matter your intelligence, that in the 13 years or maybe 14 years that we have you, my hope is that we grow you every single year, and that at the end of 12th grade that you're prepared for whatever your journey is going to be, whether it's to enlist, to enroll, or to go straight to employment. That we want to create productive citizens that can be a positive citizens for our county. So that would be my hope.
Couple challenges come to mind and it has to do a lot with money as well, is some of the unfunded mandates that come, especially from the federal government, state government. McKinney-Vento is one that comes to mind, which is the homeless, us taking care of the homeless. And for example, if a student lives at Atlantic and they are flooded out or whatever, but they can't find housing there and they have to move to Newport, under McKinney-Vento, we are required to transport those students to and from school with $0 allocated to that.
To Atlantic School.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
to their
School of origin. Right.
Without any money tied to that. So we have to pick up that. And it's not a plannable kind of thing. Those situations come up all the time. And you don't know, you may have 5 this year, you may have 25 next year. So those are some of the things, and they're not the only unfunded mandates. School nurses, they have been such a blessing during COVID, and they are so needed, and yet, we see them getting cut. But that is a lot of lifeline especially for some of the students that have the emotional issues. Those nurses make contacts with parents and doctors and therapists. Sometimes we go quickly to cut music and art, and those people don't realize how important music and art is to the development of the whole brain. And without our music and arts programs, we are cutting out a whole side of that brain that needs to be developed. So it's physical there. The other thing that truly, truly worries me, I was one of the lucky ones that I knew at the age of 10 I wanted to be a teacher. I became a teacher, and I can honestly say that every job I ever had I absolutely loved and I was passionate about. But our teacher education programs and people going into the field of education still, because it has not become a field that is well respected, especially in our state. I'll just go ahead and throw that out. May get me in trouble. But if we don't have quality teachers, and I'll say to the young teachers coming in, I just want you to love it as much as I did and see the good in every student and the good in every day and go home with happy stories. But I am very scared about what a teacher shortage may look like in our county and in our state. When I was a principal of an elementary school, I might have had 100 applicants for one position. Now I think they're scraping. They're calling people to say, will you apply? So that is going to be a huge challenge.
Absolutely. And I agree with their challenges. But I think Mr. Paylor hit it on the head, that our hope and what we're committed to is that every student at Carteret County Public Schools feels they belong, They feel they have a caring adult that's going to fight for them, that's going to support them, and that we've done our jobs, that when they walk across that stage and graduate, they have a choice-filled future. And that's why we do what we do, so they have opportunities behind us. So we'll take questions.
This actually harkens back to a question that, or something that you mentioned about Parker's Island School being the hub of the community, and this is something for all of y'all. How did school consolidation and school closures impact communities, especially in Down East?
Well,
So I'll speak to that. I was actually transferred from as a principal to open up Down East Middle School during that consolidation, and I will speak and go on record and say I think it's the best thing that's happened for our Down East kids. I was promoted in 8th grade, and I was one of 17 kids. And it was the same 17 kids that started as in kindergarten together. There may have been a family move in and move out in the time, but pretty much the same 17 kids. And that was great. And those 17 kids were great and great classmates, and I still see them, and they are great. But I think what it would have been a better experience for me had I been with 51 kids from Down East at a consolidated middle school to learn how to collaborate and work with others. And so I see it as being a very positive thing. Those elementary schools still exist. So still we have Atlantic Elementary. They still have their identity. Parker's Island still has their identity as a K-5 school. But I think it was a blessing for the middle school kids to be consolidated and to be able to be together as a middle school.
And that consolidation also allowed for, instead of 3 little basketball teams, they have one robust basketball team. And instead of not being able to offer courses, Richie and Jody were able to have more.
That's exactly right.
Courses for them because they couldn't afford a teacher who could drive there, half their time was spent driving.
Yes, absolutely.
and Karen and I came along with the consolidation of the high schools, where every community had their own high school. They were K-12 schools. And I think time has a way of healing. I think we had some bumps in the road. Karen very openly says that I was from the city or the town. She was from Down East. I don't remember it that way, but we've been able to be very good friends. And I can't imagine it any other way now. We did have growing pains in this county when we opened East Carteret and West Carteret because everybody was giving up their K-12 school, and like Richie said, they had their own classes that never ventured out of that building. But it has brought more opportunities as you get those kinds of situations. There's all kinds of opportunities that you can do in a larger, more consolidated school than you can do in individual, smaller schools.
This would be pertaining to a 6th grade student entering middle school. And perhaps it's just for one head meanwhile, or maybe it's for them. If they choose to have music, will they be able to have your CTC before they get into the high school level?
Say that one more time. I want to make sure I follow.
If a student enters the 6th grade in middle school,
Uh-huh.
and they would like to have music, and they take music, and they're going to take music all 3 years.
Sure.
Will they be able to have it?
Mm-hmm. So our middle schoolers have 2 electives during their specials time. So they will have PE and music, and they do it by the semester. So then the next semester they can have the career exploration class or art or whatever that other elective is. So they do have choices there. Mm-hmm. And also in our middle schools, we run major clarity through, say, a social studies class as well. Because we do know that kids kind of go here and there, but everybody's taking social studies. So we make sure we run that through something that all students will go through. Absolutely.
Questions, thoughts, comments?
I
Have you seen any major demographic shifts in Carteret County in the last few years, maybe with Hurricane Florence or COVID or any other things? And how have you addressed those kinds of changes?
So we have seen a population, I would say growth, but I would say more than a growth, it's probably been a shift from the down east areas to mostly Highway 24. We see that area growing. We just finished this past year. We have an addition at Croatan High School. This summer we're finishing up an addition at Broad Creek Middle School. And so we see our down east schools. They've actually been kind of steady for the past several years, but we see the western end of our county growing.
And as far as student groups growths, our largest growing student groups are our Hispanic students. We've seen a large increase there. We do have teachers that are assigned just for those students. Now, what those teachers do, though, is they work with a classroom teacher. And how do I, as a classroom teacher, make sure that I am exposing vocabulary and all that we need to do to help those? And again, community partnerships helps with some of that as well.
To just give you a perspective of that, Karen and I graduated in a class of 212 at East Carteret, and now they just have a little over 400 total students, so a class of about 100, a little over 100 now. So there's definitely a demographic switch, like Mr. Paylor says, to the western end. That end is becoming more retirement oriented than some of the western parts.
Yeah, and you can follow up with what I missed. So, almost 2 years ago, we started a program called the CAPE program, and it stands for Careers and Partnerships in Education, where we reached out to local businesses to create partnerships with them, so that kids could have a real world. So we've had internships for years, and that looked like kids getting placed at a business, maybe one kid here, one kid there. It could be paid, it might not be paid. It was just they got their 120 hours to create their internship. But we wanted a more real world. What does it look like if you're really employed by this? And so we partner with businesses, and right now we're at maybe 6 or 7 businesses in the county, to where the kids go through that they have to apply for the position. They have to go and interview. There might be choosing 10 people. There might be 15 kids that actually apply and interview, and the business chooses the 10 that they think, just like the real world. And those kids are employed with the business. That they get their internship hours in the business, and then and this mostly happens during the summer. And then in the fall, when they come back to school, there's a educational piece that they have to complete a portfolio to get school credit. We found it to be very successful so far. There's many kids that have interned in a business, and I'll even say the very first business that we partnered with was ourselves. We placed 5 young men in our maintenance department, and they worked through the various fields of the maintenance and HVAC, carpentry, electrical, and plumbing. And one of the young men, as soon as he graduated, he came to work for us. So he applied. We had an opening. He applied, and is right now is a great employee. We have I'll miss him if I start listing, but we have with the hospital was the next one we partnered with Curtis Chevrolet. We're with Parker Offshore, Beaufort Hotel, in town of Beaufort. And there's others in line that we're getting ready to partner with. So that's been very successful. I think it's been a great experience for kids, and we've had some kids that have gone to work in fields and was like, thank God I did this, because I do not want to do this the rest of my life. So it's been very eye-opening and successful, and we're continuing to try to partner with more businesses every year.
Patty? You will always be synonymous with education in Carteret County. So
I would just say that Carteret County is so fortunate to have leaders like these folks as our leaders who are from the county. And some people might say, that sounds sort of sheltered to me. But these folks have had experiences elsewhere, and they've come back, and they're always seeking, and I just couldn't be prouder of our leadership now. It's amazing, and when you watch the Facebook page, you think you get innovative. Look at that, because our county in 1994 led the state in technology. The citizens supported a $29 million bond, $6 billion, which seemed like an enormous amount of technology everywhere, and we've just been racing ever since, racing ahead of people, and we're there, and y'all are great to do that.
Thanks, Tabby.
Thank you, Tabby.
Thank you. You're welcome to stick around and visit.